Well, good evening, and call the special meeting of the Ames City Council to order for Tuesday, April 8th. And we have one item on the agenda for the special meeting, and that's a public hearing regarding proposed property tax levy. Turn it over to Corey and to Nancy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may know, there's two public hearings required statutorily prior to approval of the budget. And so tonight is the first hearing. Tonight's hearing is on the property tax levy. We've published in the paper a hearing notice and the associated tax rate. Residents and property owners have received in the mail the property tax budget statement. So we're here tonight is to receive feedback on that levy rate and the information contained in that statement. And then additionally, just as a procedural, I guess, item, following the meeting, the council has the authority to lower the rate or the revenues received from property taxes, but cannot increase the rate as a result of the hearing. So we've talked about a few things in the preparation of our budgets, and one of the things that I think we presented was some of the confusion regarding the statements sent to property tax owners. And so just a few minutes to maybe talk about some of their calculations and really maybe more what it means to our residents. So up on the screen, I have something similar that we provide during our budget sessions. I'll point out just quickly here. So this would be what the state sent. It contains the information. I think the highlight maybe this year is that all of the statements include a 10% increase in valuation. And so the budget year we're headed into was a non-reassessment year. We've consulted with the city assessor who indicated that there was less than 10 existing properties who saw property tax increases as a result of revaluation. So from our standpoint, there's very few people that were impacted by changes in valuation. That doesn't mean that the change in the rollback you can see in this line increased by about 1%. So that does affect the taxable valuation. But I think the highlight of the statements received by the property taxpayers was really this 14.9% increase for residential properties. And again, that's probably not a circumstance that occurred in Ames. So we have another sample here. We did talk about this as well during our budget hearings. And so here's really probably a more realistic example of the impact of the property tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. You can see the rate remains the same. It's just a 2% increase just above. But really the impact of the property tax owner is really about a 4.5% increase for residential properties and just under 3% for commercial industrial properties. So again, this was the first year that the statements included a valuation increase for all properties of 10%. And so unlike last year, the statement was maybe a little more materially misleading as regards to valuation.
Are you done? All right.
Yeah.
I have a question. Maybe you can help people. So people were receiving in the mail last week or this week.
Yep.
New assessments.
That's right.
Somehow that affects the budget and which budget and when they're going to pay that versus this, what you're talking about.
Yeah. So property taxes, as many people know, are paid in arrears. So the valuation that was just sent theoretically on April 1st will not be for the budget that we're talking about tonight. It will be for the next budget. So there's still opportunity for people to appeal their valuations if they choose to do so. The valuations that we're talking about tonight were established on January 1st, 2024.
And so they're for what fiscal year then?
That would be for fiscal year 25-26, which is what we're talking
received the mail or for
26-27.
Okay, it's sometimes confusing. I'm not sure everyone understands it.
Questions?
Corey, several months ago, when we were discussing this, we had talked about the messaging that we wanted to make sure we were communicating accurately with the public. Could you just walk us back through the area of confusion and what we had proposed in terms of communicating to our residents?
Yeah, so I think the direction we received from council was to evaluate whether it was possible to send a letter included with the property taxpayer budget statements. We consulted with the county auditor who was willing to include a letter from the city explaining the statement. But unfortunately, in consultation with the Department of Management, who really manages this process from the state, they indicated that that was not a possibility. And statutorily, they believed that the city was not allowed to include anything but the budget statement in the letter. So what we did as an alternative, we created a website, cityofames.org/property tax, put much of the information that we in all likelihood would have included in the letter. And then at the bottom of the letter, in the notes section, we directed people to that webpage. So if they had questions, we were hopeful that they might find that information there, including a calculator that they could use to calculate their own property tax obligations. And so we've received a few calls, not a significant number, but really the goal was to get that out there and direct people to that website so they could really understand the impact of the property tax.
And thank you for that.
Yeah.
So which department was it that said that we could not include this statement?
That would be the Department of Management,
And
State Department.
the State Department of Management. Yes, not a county office. Yeah.
yeah, thanks for that clarification. And
Mhm.
did they provide you with a reason why we couldn't communicate with our own residents on this?
They suggested that we could communicate with our own residents in an independent or separately mailed letter, but they did not believe that the legislation passed allowed us to include anything but the required letter.
And did you discuss with them the type of concerns and clarification that we were seeking to offer? I guess that's really what I'm trying to tease out.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We weren't the only city, as you can imagine, seeking ways to communicate with residents about the contents of the letter. And they indicated that that was the guidance that they had given all the cities that had kind of saw a way to maybe attach a letter to the mailer that would obviously reference what was included in the envelope. So,
And this is just all so frustrating that we have to even be compelled to want to clarify this. That's the bigger problem. And then when we're trying to communicate more accurately, then we're not allowed to do that. And I appreciate very much creating the website and the tools, but those people aren't going to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to look at that in their mail and they're going to say, what is going on? And at a time when, if any, there was a time when we need to communicate accurately about property taxes, it's right now, because this is only adding fuel to the fire to those who want to pull our leashes with respect to property taxes in Iowa. And so and I be very careful here. I'm the only one who's speaking on this issue. I am very disappointed the Department of Management would not allow a city to offer a communication that would allow us to communicate more clearly the status of that first letter. That's very disappointing to me.
Other questions or comments?
Corey, the calculator that's available.
Yeah.
Is that for the 26, 27 valuations? It's not for whatever the current rate is.
So it's for the budget year that we're going into. So the calculator provided the rate for the year that we're currently in, our forecasted rate that we sent out or was sent out to residents. And then it allowed residents to look at their own valuation with some direction in which numbers they were looking for and plug those in to see the impact. Now, as I mentioned, there's very few properties that saw valuation changes. If there was new construction, if there was an addition or improvement, in all likelihood there could have been a valuation change, but majority, 99% of property owners didn't see a valuation change. So pretty simple process.
And is this a calculator that we are going to maintain from year to year?
I think that's the goal. I think part of it is we're still waiting to hear what happens with property taxes and maybe some complexities around that. I think Nancy and her staff did a great job putting that together. We got a lot of feedback. Some other cities are also utilizing our webpage as a bit of an example. So we're trying to get the communication out there as best as possible, but our hope is that we'll continue to find ways to improve our communication regarding the property tax impacts.
Well, thanks for your efforts.
One more issue. So we've got the communication that was just given. I'd like to bring up the subject of future communication. So I think we would agree that this communication was not an accurate communication to the residents. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd say that's correct.
And so are there channels that we should be exploring? And I don't know if it's the Department of Revenue or which branch of government. I wasn't even thinking about the Department of Management and the scope of this, but it seems like, okay, this was not pleasant, this didn't work out, but prospectively, can we take the initiative now while this is fresh in people's minds to say, is there a way in which we could do this better prospectively? What are your thoughts on that?
We provided some feedback to the Department of Management, I think, who helps or participates in the construction of the legislation that initiated the letters. Really what I think residents and property owners are looking for is what really is the impact to be individually. And the county auditor has that information. They're the ones that manage the system that gathers the data that sends the letter. And so there was a lot of cities, not just the city of Ames, that suggested that the valuation is independent and individual, and that valuation should be included or incorporated in the letter. And so the calculations are more accurate in terms of how does it affect my individual property. And so, there's a lot of, you've seen a lot of conversations about legislation related to property taxes. And I think that's some of the feedback that cities have been trying to provide the legislature. I will say, alternatively, last year, if you remember, the letter showed a significant decrease in property taxes because the levy rate was similar. The rollback went down significantly. That wasn't accurate either. And so really the only way to accomplish, I think, what you're looking for is really to have individual property valuations included in the calculations of the letter.
Yeah, we work so hard in transparency in government. So one of the characteristics that should describe the way in which we engage with the community is transparency and honesty. And so this is something I would like to see if we can find ways to work on prospectively. Thank you.
Other questions? So when they're doing the calculator, they should not use what they just got in the mail, but the valuation, or they need to use a valuation that shows for the previous year, not the new revised valuation, because they're going to get an incorrect amount for everyone's taxes, or for all taxes, or for whose taxes?
Well, so we tried to do our best to explain how the calculator works. When we initially issued the calculator, the 25 valuations weren't available, so that wasn't an issue. But there are instructions in the calculator. Again, property valuations are very, very specific and individual to properties. And so really the website the county provides has a significant amount of information. We're just trying to simplify the process by saying, this is the number you look for. This is the number you look for here. So.
You didn't ask my question well. When they see the taxes, it's not their total tax.
Right.
Would you explain that?
Yeah. So the city, I think on the website that we developed, we said the city's about 1/3 of the total rate. So the levy rate's about $33 or about $10.30 of that levy. So it varies depending on what school district you live in, a few other things, but either we're about 1/3 or less. And so that's really, but we only control the city's levy rate. And so really we're just trying to demonstrate the impact of the things that we have the ability to control.
All right. So I'll declare the public hearing regarding the proposed property tax levy for fiscal year July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2026 to be open. Is there anyone that wants to address council? Excuse me, with regarding this topic tonight? If you would just introduce yourself and you may begin.
Sure. So my name is Jason Marcourt. I recently bought a home in the Ames area, and I just want to talk to you roughly about the impact that this increase is going to have on me and some reasons why at this time I am completely against this. So this one of the primary reasons I'm against this year is not in your control. It actually has to do with the Gilbert School District. So the Gilbert School District this year is, if they don't get any money from the state, they will be raising their effective taxes basically about 30%. So that is dollar value, not anything specifically to do with the percentages on the levy. So I haven't had time to look into whether the state has decided to send them any money or not. However, that is still a significant increase. I was present at that meeting, and they're basically just like, even if the state sends us money, we're still going to raise it 15%. So at least for me, for a 30% increase, that's roughly $2,500. So any like that increase, which again, I know that you folks don't have any control over, is ridiculously high. So anything like even if they do the 15%, that's still over $1,000 just for the Gilbert School District. So any increase on top of that is going to be incredibly difficult for me personally to absorb. In addition, the economic conditions, whatever political party you happen to agree with, I think we can say are not exactly ideal right now. And additionally, with the coming layoffs at USDA, that's going to heavily impact the community as well. So I just wanted to state, some of the reasons why this is not going to be absorbable. I know that people on fixed income are going to have a problem. I know that people who are a little bit closer to the line than I am are also going to have a problem. At the Gilbert School District hearing, some of the people who came to speak spoke about how this will cause them to move. Like this increase is literally enough to push them over the line to where it's just like, I cannot absorb this. We have to move. So that is similar to my situation. If it goes too high, then I don't have a choice. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Others? If there's nobody else, we're going to close public hearing.
And I wonder if Corey, if
Let me. All right, declare the public hearing to be closed. Go ahead.
and Corey, I wonder if even there's a moment after we're done tonight, maybe you could connect with Mr. Marquardt just to make sure. I mean, thanks for coming tonight. And this is a bummer that you feel like you're getting priced out of the community. No one wants to feel that way. But I'm wondering in some ways if you're a prototype that you get this letter and you're very concerned about that, but that you have actually accurate numbers to look at. And so I was not aware, thanks for informing us, I was not aware of what was going on with the Gilbert School District. As you point out, we have no control over this. That affects my ward. And so it's something that I appreciate you letting us know, but maybe you could visit and sort of, did you try the calculator?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that you have accurate numbers on that. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Next steps that we're going through. There's no decision made tonight.
Nothing
So
to
if you want to just review for those for council and for those in attendance, what our next step is going to be.
Yep. So at the regular meeting tonight, we'll set the final public hearing, which is the adoption of the budget for April 22nd. And then that would conclude our normal budgeting and statutory requirements for approval of the budget, at which point we would send it back to the Department of Management for approval and then their final review.
So there'll be another public hearing
One more.
on the
2 weeks.
22nd.
Yep.
And what is the deadline for the city to comply with state law regarding submitting the budget to the state?
Sure. We have to have the budget filed by the end of April.
All right. With that, entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned.
Nice way we get coming.